Actually, how do you do it? No, it's more like, hi, I'm Whitney, registered dietitian.
Do I do that?
I think so, don't you?
I do like that. Hi, I did that.
I told you. That's
Okay.
your thing. Now you're realizing it.
No, it's just a habit. Hands down. I'm just gonna go like this and now I feel embarrassed.
No, go feel.
Hi, my name's Whitney and I'm a registered dietitian. And today we'll be talking about the top 5 questions I get as a dietitian. As a registered dietitian, I get tons of questions regarding nutrition. But here are the top 5 that I compiled from questions that many individuals ask me, as well as what you all ask me on social media. As a registered dietitian, I have a few areas of practice that I absolutely love and tend to focus on. Those are digestive health, surgical nutrition, plant-based eating, as well as more practical nutrition. That includes helping you with your shopping habits and making sure that all of the nutrition information that we've shared together really translates to what goes onto your plate and into your tummy. So the 5 big topics I'll be talking about today are supplements, protein, cravings, iron, as well as what the heck is the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist. So let's get started. Supplements. One question I get quite often is, there's so many different supplements on the market, which one should I be taking? This question is a prime example of it's really important to work with a health professional, including your physician, your pharmacist, as well as your registered dietitian, to figure out the supplements that are best for you. There are so many marketed on social media, on TV, and ads that you might be seeing out there when it comes to different types of supplements to take. One thing that people are pretty surprised about when they work with me is I end up stopping or getting them to really reflect on the reason why they're taking some supplements. Often people are spending so much money on different types of vitamins or minerals or herbs they really don't necessarily need. And it's really important to work with a health professional before you start taking any sort of supplement, because if you're taking these supplements at much higher doses than you need, they actually can be more toxic and harmful rather than helpful. That being said, there are a few supplements that I get people to think about or stew on. The very first one is vitamin D. I live here in Vancouver, in Canada, and here in Canada, we really don't get that much sunlight. Not only do we not get a ton of sunlight that allows us to produce vitamin D endogenously through our skin, so we're able to actually use those sun rays and produce vitamin D in our bodies, but the angle of the sun just isn't the most ideal compared to other places in the world. So vitamin D is going to be that one supplement that I suggest for really the majority of my clients. The dosage will vary depending on your particular needs or any medical conditions that you may have, but often a dosage that I suggest is about 2,000 international units each day for an adult. Other supplements that I may have conversations about or get people to reflect on include things like omega-3 fatty acids, a magnesium supplement, possibly a probiotic, a calcium supplement, but those are really on a case-by-case basis, depending on somebody's medical conditions or just what their average or daily food choices look like. Often a lot of these supplements can actually be obtained from the foods that you eat. So connect with a dietitian to see if all those supplements that you're taking are truly needed. If you are an individual following a plant-based diet, really primarily a vegan diet, or consume very few animal products, it's really important to also take a vitamin B12 supplement. Most vitamin B12 sources are from animal sources. There can be some foods that are vegan or plant-based that are fortified with vitamin B12, but if you are following a plant-based diet, good thing to get your family doc to check your vitamin B12 levels and to consider taking a supplement. I personally do take a vitamin D supplement. I also take an omega-3 fatty acid supplement because I don't really get very much fish in my diet and don't get a ton of plant-based omega-3 fatty acids to really be meeting my nutritional needs. And those who are also like me, who are of childbearing age and trying to produce a family of their own, I also take a prenatal. But multivitamins aren't something I often suggest for every single person. Really depends on their nutritional intakes. Next up, protein. Protein tends to be one of those nutrients that my clients either eat a ton of or don't eat enough of. When everyone thinks about protein, the first thing they probably think about is aesthetics and really for them gains. But protein is so important for other aspects of our nutritional status. They're really important for the function of all of the organs in our bodies. There's many cellular metabolism functions that require protein for our bodies to actually digest and utilize the energy that we consume. And protein is really important for our satiety or fullness. It's a big reason why I get all of my clients to incorporate some sort of protein at every meal or snack they consume. But the question I get is, how much protein should I be aiming to have? Most of us healthy individuals will need roughly 1 gram per kilogram of body weight. If you roughly know your weight in pounds, just grab that weight and divide it by 2. That's roughly how much protein you should have each day. But it's really important to divide that protein up throughout the day. Your body can utilize only so much protein per amount that you're having. So if you're having all of that protein in one meal, essentially your body is using whatever it needs, and then you have really expensive urine by the end of that meal. I tend not to get people to necessarily weigh or count the exact amounts of protein that they are eating through each meal or snack. I am more of a visual person, so I get them to think about having roughly a quarter of what their meal looks like being a source of protein. If you're somebody who's following a plant-based diet, I usually suggest having more than just that quarter amount per meal, mainly because when it comes to plant-based proteins, a lot of them are a mix of protein as well as a carbohydrate. That may result in you having a little bit less carbohydrates at that meal so you can get a bit more protein for your plant-based options, but that's perfectly a-okay. Then when it comes to snacks, aiming for half of that snack being some sort of a protein source. But where is the protein coming from? For those of you who do consume animal products, that'll come from any of the meats that you might be having, cheeses, milks. But for those of you who are following more of a plant-based diet, things like nuts or seeds, beans or lentils or other legumes, tofu is a really high source of protein, as well as some of those meat alternative products that you might see on the market. So regardless if you're more of a meat eater or if you are following a plant-based diet, be sure to incorporate a source of protein at each of your meals and snacks and space it out throughout the day. Cravings. A lot of people I work with tend to mention that they have cravings. Many times this may happen at the end of the day or can happen throughout the day for various reasons. Here are a few tips that I get individuals to think about when it comes to managing the cravings that they have. 1, are you getting adequate food throughout the day? For some individuals, they notice that they tend not to have very much in the beginning of the day. They tend to eat a lot more later in the day because of their appetite, because they're just really busy working professionals, because they just don't have the time to eat, which often results in some of those cravings later on in the day. One thing to consider is having some sort of a snack in the beginning of your day. Not all of us are breakfast eaters. I'm totally one of them. But having some sort of a snack that's full of protein as well as fiber earlier on in the day, even before lunchtime at some point, can be one way to make sure that you're getting enough nutrition before you reach that point of having the cravings later on in the day. 2, hydration. Are you making sure that you're meeting your fluid needs? A lot of the times when somebody has a craving, I get them just to have a few sips of water. Many times they actually are thirsty and feeling quite dehydrated rather than actually having a craving. 3, stress. Stress has such big impacts on the cravings that we may be having or the food choices that we make. If we think about some of those treats that we're eating, they're not often really fruits or vegetables or some of these more nutrient-dense foods. They tend to be those delicious desserts or delicious salty treats that we absolutely love. And by having some of those foods, it's bringing down some of those really not so fun stress hormones and bringing up some of those positive, happy hormones that make us feel really good. So one thing that may sound easier said than done is working on that stress management. Are you working with a health professional like a counselor or a therapist to help with some of the coping mechanisms when it comes to your stress? It can be as simple as even working on 5 minutes of breathing exercises. So you're really focusing on yourself and that present moment. But stress has so many impacts on both our nutrition and our health status. So a really important one to consider. Sleep is also another really important factor. If we're not getting enough sleep, it may have impacts on some of those hunger hormones that are flowing through our bodies. So getting enough sleep is actually important to help to manage a lot of those cravings as well. And lastly, think about whether you're eating for nutrition versus the taste of it. Sometimes we want to have that small little treat. If you really want to eat that treat that you're really craving, go for it. It's absolutely okay. One thing I get people to keep in mind when they're enjoying some of these treats that they might be craving is making sure they're eating it mindfully. Make sure all of those distractions that are surrounding you, including your phone, the TV, and work, are all put aside, and you're spending that time really enjoying that food. That's really thinking about the textures of the food, the flavors of the food, chewing it really well so you're actually enjoying it rather than doing it because it's part of a routine or because it's something that you tend to do in a more distracted fashion. Actually enjoy the food that you're eating. Iron. Having more of that background around digestive health, plant-based eating, and having many females working with me, I tend to work with a lot of individuals who may have iron deficiency anemia. Before you decide to take any supplements, be sure to have a proper diagnosis from your family doctor or from a physician before you start toying with any iron supplements. But I know many people tend not to really enjoy taking an iron supplement, mainly because it causes a lot of digestive symptoms, can cause some constipation, some bloating, some additional gas. So I tend to have people asking me what kind of foods they should incorporate to make sure that they're boosting as much iron as they can in their diet. To be honest, a lot of my clients tend to have pretty low iron storage levels, so we tend to really go with that more supplement route. But when it comes to iron-rich foods, there are two kind of categories they fall under. There's heme iron that are often found from animal sources, as well as non-heme iron, which tend to be from plant-based sources. Although I can appreciate that heme iron tends to be a little bit better absorbed than non-heme sources, there's many people following plant-based diets now, and there are many ways to be able to include iron-rich foods following a plant-based diet. For those of you who do consume animal products, a lot of those meats tend to have a lot of iron in it. But for that more plant-based route, things that are really great sources of protein tend to also be the foods that are high in iron. So things like your beans and lentils, some of those nuts and seeds, tofu, and then some things that you may not think of, like blackstrap molasses can be another. But one thing to consider is having a source of vitamin C alongside the iron that you're eating. Doesn't have to be in a supplement form. I tend to get people to have a food source of vitamin C alongside that protein or iron-rich food. A lot of people tend to think about citrus fruits being really high in vitamin C, but here's a list of vitamin C-rich foods that you may not realize are high in vitamin C that may be easier to incorporate into your diet. If you're curious when it comes to different types of iron supplements to be taking, it's really important to connect with your pharmacist or your registered dietitian before you decide to play with dosages of iron supplements. But one thing I get people to think about is just any sort of cultural, religious, or personal beliefs, since some of these iron supplements do come from an animal source, but there are still many different types of iron supplements out there that don't have an animal source. And this is an area of interest for all of you. Please let me know in the comments because I can totally do another video that's solely focused on iron. And lastly, a common question I get is, what is the difference between a dietitian and a nutritionist? To be honest, they tend to be used pretty interchangeably when it comes to both the medical community as well as just the community in general. And here in Canada, registered dietitians can also call themselves nutritionists. The thing is, not everyone can call themselves a registered dietitian. For those who are registered dietitians, it takes a lot of schooling to become a dietitian. Like other regulated health professionals, I'm thinking of nurses, physiotherapists, pharmacists, social workers. All of us go through rigorous training and extensive education to become one of those regulated health professionals. I myself went to the University of British Columbia, did a 4-year degree and a 1-year practicum, which is typically what the education looks like here in Canada to become a registered dietitian. I then completed an exam that allowed me to be credited here in Canada, and I am regulated under the College of Dietitians of British Columbia, which is there to protect you as individuals who are in the community to make sure that we are practicing in an evidence-based way and to ensure that we are providing nutrition information that is safe for you. When it comes to nutritionists, if they don't have that dietitian background or education, they may have completed a course, they may be self-taught, they may also be holistic nutritionists that also go through their own education and training. but these individuals aren't often part of a regulated college to protect the public. And to be frank, Jason, who is a computer engineer, could easily call himself a nutritionist here in British Columbia, since it's not a regulated term to be using. And people don't realize how much science and chemistry and biology and physiology information is required to be able to actually understand nutrition and how it impacts the human body. When it comes to nutrition information, it's really important to get your information from a regulated health professional so that you know it's evidence-based, it's also safe, and it's really customized to your particular needs. If you ever have questions on being a registered dietitian, if you're interested in exploring the profession, feel free to shoot me a direct message. So those are the top questions I get as a registered dietitian. But are there any that I missed that you were hoping for me to capture? If there are, please let me know in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching. If there are any other questions or nutrition topics you're hoping that I'll cover, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you at the next video. Bye. Oh, I forgot to say smash that bell. And don't forget to smash that bell. I seriously think that's like the most stupid thing to say. Anyone questioning my age and whether I'm a Gen Zer now officially knows I'm not because of side part millennial. I really can't do the middle part.